Hi everyone, a 575-day streak on Duolingo here with Rhyme Signatures, the nerdiest music review this side of, despite casually learning Swedish for a year and a half now, the only word that immediately comes into my head is tidning. And today we're going to be doing a review of the new Evergrey album, Theories of Emptiness. You know, when I was listening to this album and my brain slowly whirred into life as I began contemplating what kind of amusing or pithy anecdote I could open this video with, I started idly moving my dinner around my plate, lost deep in thought, and then it occurred to me that spaghetti and meatballs is my favourite food in the whole wide world. Yeah, I know, it's a bit basic of me, but frankly I'm a damn good cook, and my homemade pasta sauce is the stuff of legends around these parts. And when I decide that it's meatball night, maybe once a fortnight or so, everyone present has a really great time. It's rich, it's layered, it's warm and satisfying with a hint of spice in just the right places, and once I've finished my plate, I'm always left in a good mood. But there's a reason I don't have spaghetti and meatballs every night of the week. There's a reason I like to vary things up in my diet, and that's just the honest-to-goodness truth, that having the same thing repeatedly, day after day, can make even the best of flavours and textures feel frustrating and ultimately quite boring. So anyway, here's Evergrey with their 14th studio album, Theories of Emptiness. Now, I'm reasonably certain that at this point in their career, Sweden's Evergrey needs very little in the way of introduction. Breaking onto the scene in the late 90s with their debut album The Dark Discovery, the band wasted very little time in making a splash, with the sophomore of Solitude, Dominance, Tragedy, third album In Search of Truth, Recreation Day and The Inner Circle, making for a potent, well-stacked salvo of pretty fantastic melancholic progressive power metal. Now, I joined in on the band reasonably late into their career, making perhaps an ill-judged step into their murky waters with 2011's Glorious Collision. And it was only at the insistence of some of my peers at the time that I decided to stick with them, and I was grateful that I did, as that initial run of 5 or so albums was, and still is, pretty great. So from 2011 onwards, I stuck my head around the door at the pretty regular album release cycle. I enjoyed Hymns for the Broken and The Storm Within, but by the time I got to The Atlantic, Escape of the Phoenix, and A Heartless Portrait, I was starting to feel like my earlier spaghetti and meatballs analogy was becoming somewhat pertinent. So yeah, here we are with album number 14, Theories of Emptiness, and my social circles were ablaze with excitement and praise for this one, some even dubbing it as their best album to date. So with a critical ear in mind, I set about the latest 51 minutes from this legendary Swedish quintet. Right, the one thing you can always say about Evergrey, if you're going to say anything at all about the band, is that Tom Englund's vocals are like a fine molasses-based wine. The man has seldom missed a beat, and this album is no exception, unlike the majority of metal vocalists, James LaBrie, who seem to falter and crack at this point in their careers. The 50-year-old Englund sounds more confident and in charge than ever before. Feeling in ways like a demonic Michael Bolton, full of the strife and grief of 100 years of emotional torment, his rich and distinctive vocals have lost none of their power, and they manage to sound particularly confident on this offering. Now, I don't know what it is this time around, but there's a distinct and very particular edge to everything he sings on Theories of Emptiness, almost like Englund is summarising his career and entire range rather poetically. The rest of the band are no slouches either, with plenty of down-tempo, dirgy passages, distinctive riffing, powerful drum fills, and gothic charm rounding out the experience. There's some really catchy numbers on offer here too, with the likes of One Heart feeling particularly fist-pumping, featuring a large number of guest contributions from fans over its especially anthemic chorus, cementing itself as a certain live show staple in the future. The atmospheric sections scattered throughout the album are appreciated and give a nice bit of breathing space from the wall of sound of the guitars, adding in a little bit of a sonic variety and allowing time for Englund's more emotive passages to blossom into potent nuggets of melancholic introspection. So, yeah, that was quite a short prose section, I know, and that's honestly because in truth I haven't really had the best time with this album. I've given it about a full 7 or 8 spins from start to finish to make sure that the doubts and misgivings I've been having are real, and not just a case of indigestion caused by one too many spaghetti and meatball dishes. But I've come to the sad conclusion that this album, and perhaps even retroactively, Evergrey as a band simply aren't for me. What I find frustrating about Theories of Emptiness is how one note it all feels, like a smear of paint stretched across a canvas in one bold sweep with little to no variety in colour or tone to speak of. The band is oft lauded as being one of the veterans of the progressive metal scene, but honestly, why? Theories of Emptiness is about as progressive as Uncle Dave at Christmas time after he's 5 glasses of port down and watching the King's Speech. This is standard issue cock rock heavy metal through and through. Progressive metal should be exactly that, metal that pushes the envelope, challenges the listener with new ideas and approaches, even if those ideas are misguided and don't always land. This record is safe, distressingly so, rarely if ever moving outside of the lines that the band have drawn for themselves over the last half dozen albums or so. Outside of mixing things up with a ballad or a somber number with some atmospherics thrown in, the dynamics of this record are extremely one note, resulting in a 50-minute long experience that feels almost twice as long in length. 4-minute long songs where the band has written a chorus and a bare-bones structure of a song around it are not much fun to listen to. A metal song needs more than just a catchy hook and a widdly guitar solo to keep my attention, and God knows a progressive metal song needs a lot more than that. And it's this sense of repetition and frustration that follows the album from start to finish. As much as I do enjoy Englund's vocals, and how he's a technically gifted singer, there's so little variety to his tonality on this album. It's an overwhelming delivery of the same flavour, and as much as that flavour is good, when it's all you can taste, it swiftly becomes quite boring. I have this issue with a few other vocalists, like Damien Wilson and Peter Nichols being the chief culprits, but the more I listen to this album, the more I'm nearly putting Englund right up there with them. He's gifted, yes, and in small doses I think he's amazing. Probably why I find him so appealing on his contributions to Aerion's Planet Y album, but why I find him so frustrating as the lead vocalist on other records. Now I could keep going on about the minutiae of why I've not enjoyed this album, but honestly, I'm not feeling particularly inspired or enthused to justify my displeasure, so let's just leave it at this. Theories of Emptiness is certainly one of the Evergrey albums of all time. So, what else can I say about Evergrey's Theories of Emptiness? I've honestly just flat out not really enjoyed this one. It's not entirely without merit though, there's some pretty cool riffs to be found, some great vocal hooks, the occasional interesting dynamic thrown in for good measure, but at the end of the day, if I was to surmise this album with a single word, it would be insufficient. The band are 14 albums deep into their career. Now, most bands never make it as far as this, but the best bands who do have done so by keeping a sense of dynamic evolution and flow to their sound. This just reminds me of any other Evergrey album to my ears. If you played me an excerpt from this album, then one from their last 5 or 6 albums, I wouldn't have a clue which was which. Evergrey have their niche, they have their fan base, and not a damn bit of my opinions of this album should have any impact on how you feel personally about this one. If you love this album, then hell yeah, quite frankly, rock on. But I've personally found this one about as interesting and compelling as eating a bag of dry water biscuits. I will still say that this album is worth a stream, but if I'm wanting to listen to some Evergrey, I'm more inclined to say just slap In Search of Truth on again and enjoy the days of the band at their creative and artistic best, because this old horse is tired and flagging for me, and I just don't think I can sit through yet another new Evergrey album, possibly ever again. This is all, of course, guys, just my opinion, so if you loved or hated this one, please talk to me about your experiences with Theories of Emptiness in the comments down below. Please do drop me a thumbs up if you like this video, please do tell your friends about me, and please do subscribe to the channel if you've been enjoying my content so far. But until next time, guys, as always, keep your rhyme signatures pretty odd.